What is good, people? Welcome back to Football Agenda. I'm Colt K, Leeds fan.
I'm James, Manchester United fan.
It's the one and only, you can't clone me. Young, alive, handsome, healthy, in the flesh. Shady Arsenal fan.
It's Bradley. Been a hot minute since I've been here, but feels good to be back. Feels good to be back. Massive Arsenal
Hey,
fan.
do you spend every week just coming up with a new intro for yourself?
You got to spice it up. It's like a relationship. You spice it
You
up.
spend the whole 7 days just thinking, how can I... Anyway, I'm actually going to go to you first, Shay, because the first topic we've got here, finally to this week, I think it's after, is it 8 years? It's getting off 8 years now.
7.5.
Mesut Ozil is leaving Arsenal. His time in England is up. He's been here. When I realised it was 8 years, I genuinely couldn't believe it. I know he's been here for a long time, but 8 years is a long, long period to spend in the Premier League. He's basically spent the entire prime of his career here. He's finally leaving this week. Shay, as an Arsenal fan, what do you think? You sorry to see him go?
First of all, I want to thank him for his services to the football club. 7.5 years he was at the football club, so thank him for their service. I think it was the right timing. He had been frozen out of the team by Mikel Arteta. He clearly wasn't in the manager's plans. And the club had other ideas, and I thought it was the right time. How I would assess his time, I think when he signed, I had never seen, even myself, like I bought into it, regrettably. I had never seen so much hype into a signing ever. 42 million, he was signing for Arsenal. I couldn't believe it at the time. He's even rounded to sign for Arsenal. And in his first couple of years, he was absolutely brilliant. Some of the assists, the ball play, the link-up play was phenomenal. But I kind of feel like in the big games away from home, we didn't really see as much of him as I'd liked, basically. He just wasn't there in the big games as much as I liked. But overall, I think the first 2 or 3 years, he has a crazy amount of assists. So he was a good player for the football club. But ultimately, he was rinsing the fuck out of the football club. And that wasn't his fault. That was the previous administration's fault. But it was the right time. I might have to see him go, yeah, I am a little bit. I am actually. But, I wish him well. And if he wants to come back for a testimonial, I would happily give him one.
All right, okay. I mean, I'm going to get into my response to that, but I'm going to go to Bradley first because Bradley, after, a few, like I said, he's been at Arsenal a long time. You've always defended him, in my opinion. You've always been a backer of Ozil. What are your thoughts now that he's finally leaving?
Well, you know me, I'm a lover of football being an art, and make no mistake, Mesut Ozil is an artist. Some of the things that he could do on his day, there's not many midfielders, in their prime now that can do, play some of the passes and have the kind of vision that he had. But the problem is that was only realistically within sort of the first 2-3 years of his tenure at Arsenal. His link-up play with Sanchez was absolutely unbelievable. I think it was the 2017-18 season. The amount of goals and assists they got between each other was ridiculous. But ultimately, Shay's right. He didn't have what you'd call the metal, when it was away at home, when it's backs against the wall, where you've got to work hard. He's just never been that type of player. But I don't believe that's wholly his fault either, because if you look at when he played at Real Madrid and the midfield and the defence that he had around him, solid basis. And the problem that Arsenal had during those years that he was there is that the team was never built on a solid spine. And because of that, especially towards his latter years at Arsenal, he suffered. And he's just been a casualty of that weak and that poor that mentality that we're trying to just eradicate from the club. And I believe with him leaving, also Kolasinac left as well, and Mustafi, they're all friends. It's the end of an era, and it's the end of an era that I'm fucking glad to see the back of, if I'm honest with you, because we won against Newcastle yesterday, and for the first time in a God knows how long, there's no Mesut Ozil talk. It's done. You know what I mean? The situation is dealt with, and we can just quietly go about our stuff now. But look, great servant to the club. He gave me some absolutely fantastic memories. But look, everyone's time comes to an end. And look, Shay said, it's about time. I think he should have gone maybe 2 years ago, if I'm brutally honest with you. So, yeah.
Well, you say that, but it's finally done. It's finally over. You're acting like it's the end of a terrible saga you've had to sit through.
Well,
doesn't that tell you though how wrong it's gone for him with the fanfare that he was brought in
It's
on?
not him though. That's not his fault though, Kieran. It's more the media. It's more the hysteria around him. You know, when he's not playing a game because he's got a supposed back injury, or there's creativity issues in the team, and his name is mentioned rather than focus on the players that are there and the other performances that weren't good enough on that day. Why mention a player that's not even in the squad? That's why I say I'm glad the situation is ended with, because we can't now just blame Ozil not being there anymore. And that's been a thing for quite a while since Emery came in, and he sort of wasn't really in his favour.
I mean, I'm going to get into that because I think that's a whole problem with Arsenal in terms of him harking back to. I think it's a nostalgia thing of what he can do, but the reality is, in my opinion, he never fulfilled his potential at Arsenal. But I know, Shay, you've got something to say. Let me go to James first for a more neutral point of view, and I hope a more sensible point of view when it comes to Ozil.
I mean, a bit like what Bradley said, I love football being a bit of an art at times, so I completely miss seeing Ozil play. Because some of the stuff that he used to do was absolutely phenomenal and beautiful to watch. Providing it wasn't against United and didn't affect us on the table, I couldn't give two shits really. But at the same time, when is the last time we really saw him play like that? And a bit like Bradley said as well, did they really ever build the team around him to be able to give him that foundation of being the artful player that he was? Because we can all see how the game's kind of gone now, in that pretty much the whole team, whole 11, needs to be workhorses as well as doing, well in their job. Everyone needs to sort of track back. I mean, or press from the front. And Ozil just never really was that kind of player, or possibly ever will be. So he was maybe a player lost in a bit of a generation in that sense. If you're not going to put the players around him that are going to do that grafting work. So I do agree. I think it's possibly a few years too late, really, that he's actually ended up leaving. I think he should have gone about a couple of years ago when he was being dropped out of the team when you think about it at this point, by 2 or 3 managers at this point. He's been sort of shunned out of the team, which does say a lot about the mentality or something. I mean, we've I think alluded to it as well in a previous podcast about there being some political reasons why he may have been kicked out of the team. If that's the case, I mean, I wouldn't wish that upon any football player. And at the end of the day, it's if the club's willing to kick him out of the team and still pay £350,000 a week wages, that's up to them. And at that moment, the player doesn't owe them anything. So, it becomes a question of, does he want to play football then, or does he want to just get paid what he's owed? So it's a sad time, because I actually really did like Ozil as a player and would love to see him play, to a high standard again. But hopefully we can see that now with him in Turkey at Fenerbahce, who are a team that can get into the Champions League. So maybe we can see him at least, play on a fair, yearly basis in that, and see what they can do.
I mean, don't you see the problem? Like, again, I'm let Shay say what he's going to say, so I've got a lot to say on this. But isn't that the fucking problem that he's going to Fenerbahce? What does that tell you when the only team who took him were a team in the Turkish league?
But it was DC United were in. DC United wanted him in America as well. And to be fair to him,
look at the club.
To be fair to him,
Fenerbahce, no big club wants him. Let's be real here.
But
no one fucking wants him.
What is he? 32.
I was going to say, it's not like he's a young kid anymore.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, but come on.
He's off that age. At that age, all the top players in the Premier League were going to these not Turkey, but especially America. It's a standard progression step towards retirement.
Shay, what did you want to say on this before I kind of set my stall out?
Just quickly, him going gets rid of that sort of that dark cloud over the football club, because games, as Bradley said, games were being talked about more about him than who was playing, and I didn't really like that. It was becoming one big soap opera, and his tweets were, for me, an absolute disgrace. Some of his tweets, his PR. First of all, he has a great PR team. I can't credit his PR game is brilliant with Gunnosaurus, bloody brilliant. But I don't think it's him. It's his agent. his agent and him have turned the club into a weekly episode of EastEnders. So I'm glad that that cloud has gone, basically. So I wish him well. He's a good guy, but why didn't any other big club come in for him? That's my only question. But look, he's a great guy. I'm a huge fan of his charity work, and I wish him nothing but the best.
Right, this is why I'm not asked that. This is why no big club has come into him. Because the fact of the matter is, he is the most overhyped player, I think, in Premier League history. He's the biggest flop in Premier League history. When you look at what he was brought in to do, you signed him for over 40 million. He was brought in, from what I gathered, to bring Arsenal back to competing for league title season on season. He's never got anywhere close to that. Look at his stats when he's.
But look at the team, Kieran. Who's he been playing with?
No, hang on, James.
This is so true.
Mate, you're talking such shite right now. I'm not even an Arsenal fan, but I ain't having this.
He has been brought in to transform Arsenal. He never done it. Let me finish. He never has scored more than 10 goals in a season. He's never got to double figures in a season. And I know you're going to say to me, that's not his job. It's to assist. Bradley said he had one good season there, right? That was right. He had a good season, 2015, 2016. He got 19 assists. Every other season he's been there, he has not got in double digits for assists in the Premier League. And for a player who's supposed to be an assist king, that is awful. You cannot argue with that statistic. It is dreadful. He never made his double figures for an assist, other than that one season with Alexis. When they renewed his contract, they decided, you know what, we're giving 350 grand a week to a player that wasn't performing anyway. And I think, you know what, we'll give him a pay rise. It makes you wonder what was going on at that club.
Do you know why that happened, though? That happened because they knew they were losing Sanchez because he wasn't going to sign a new deal. And they knew that they needed to keep one of their big name players.
It was a panic. It was a panic.
They gave him the money. No, they gave the money because of his name, and that's been the problem.
Yes, and that's my point, because they knew he was a big name there, and they knew a name like Ozil brings in revenue and shirt sales, and they needed to keep.
That is no way to run a fucking football club.
Trust me, I know that. You don't need to tell me about the way my football clubs run, mate. Trust me.
Do you know what the best way to run a football club is? Is by winning league titles, and Ozil never helped them do that.
Hold on. Back to that. That year, 2015, we should have won the league that year, but the board did. Cazorla went out injured, I think, in the January or February, and that was it. Our league season was done. And once again, the board and the fucking owners of that club never invested at the right time, because if they had done and they had bought someone in midfield, I genuinely believe we could have gone on and won the league that season.
Maybe so.
And Ozil's 19 assists would have meant something. So you can't blame Ozil for that. He did his job that season.
Bradley, maybe so. But even then, what about the other fucking 7 seasons he's been there? That's one good season in 8. That is poor.
Well, if you look at Arsenal, anyway, they were on a downward trajectory after that anyway. After that, we just got worse and worse and worse, and that's more squad problem and an ownership problem.
This is what brings me to my next point about him. It was from the minute you signed him and all the hype surrounding him, it was doomed to fail. Because I remember when you signed him, I remember thinking, yeah, he's got a lot of quality, but is he suited to the Premier League? Because he's not a physical player, and in the Premier League, for me, he's not going to get the same time and space he would when he was playing for Real Madrid in La Liga that he'd get playing for Arsenal in the Premier League. And as soon as I just remember thinking to myself, that's going to be a big factor, because he's not going to be playing in Real Madrid in La Liga. He's going to play in an Arsenal team that is on a downward trajectory. Is he going to do well there? And the fact is, I've been right. This other thing I've got about him, every time I hear about him, is, Mesut Ozil was a luxury player. To me, that's just a byword for being fucking lazy. If you have the stats of Cristiano Ronaldo or Zlatan throughout his career, you can afford to be lazy, because you can say, look at the amount of goals he's scoring. Ozil has never been able to justify that. And that is why, like James said, a succession of managers have not played him. Wenger signed him. Wenger seemed to kind of lose interest in him. Emery came in, didn't want to play him. Ljungberg didn't play him. Arteta played him a bit and then realised, what I think the other managers realised, is that he's fucking lazy. No one's asking him to run around the whole pitch like a caged animal, but the fashion in football at the minute is to press from the front, and Ozil never even attempted to do that. So it just makes you wonder.
Just very quickly, I think you're stretching it with the biggest flop in Premier League history. I think that's a bit of a stretch.
It's not. 40
Andrei
million.
Shevchenko was a bigger flop than Ozil. Andrei Shevchenko was a bigger flop than Ozil. That's a fact.
Right, but Andrei Shevchenko wasn't at Chelsea for 8 years. This is my point. He's 2 years off a testimonial, and he's done nothing. And this brings me to a final point, which I think you're going to kick off at. But Mesut Ozil, I think, has been synonymous with Arsenal over this period. A lot of hype, a lot of talk, a lot of promise, but ultimately nothing. Ultimately overrated, and let's be honest, not very good. The last time I saw Ozil play and thought that is some player was when he was playing for Germany in the World Cup 11 years ago. It's just a myth. He's a myth. He's not a great player, and that is why. Yes, he's 32, but at 32 he could still go to Inter Milan or AC or somewhere in Italy. No one fucking wants him. That's why.
How do you know that though?
Turkish farmers.
No, but how do you know that though?
Because if Inter Milan are coming in for him and he's choosing Fenerbahce, either there's something really wrong there, or he just can't be asked.
So you don't know anything about the player, do you? He's Turkish by birth, and Fenerbahce's always been his team. He had an option. The only two offers that we actually know about are the ones from DC United and the one for Fenerbahce. And to be honest with you, commercially, financially, he would be better off going to America. But he hasn't. He's gone to his home. Back to the club that he supported when he was growing up. So I mean,
well done to him. He can be lazy there and then make an excuse, say, "Oh, I love the club." Well, fucking run around for them then. It's ridiculous. I think, in my opinion, he is the biggest flop in Premier League history. And I know James likes him, but the fact is, there's a reason why successive managers haven't played him. Simple as that.
Fair enough.
Well, it's all speculation, though. We've never actually been told what the reason was why they don't play him. And at the end of the day, like the past 3 years, he's hardly even played, has he? So it's hard to really criticise him too much for those 3 years in terms of his footballing play.
Yeah, 100%.
Because we haven't even seen him play. But I can't have you saying that he's not a good player, because we've clearly seen he's a good player, Kieran. I think that's just naive.
You're just talking about topic. I think we've put in more effort than Mesut Ozil put in his whole Premier League career, so I think we should move on. The next topic is one that I think we're all going to actually agree on for once. The state of Newcastle. I mean, this is a club. One club. I mean, there's a lot of similarities, I think, between Leeds and Newcastle. It's a one-club city. It's a big football club that hasn't won. I mean, Newcastle is even worse than Leeds. Newcastle haven't won things in decades.
And you have.
Well, we won the league in '92, but they haven't won anything.
Yeah, that's decades, mate.
How old was you in '92 again?
But no. The point I'm making is we've at least won something in kind of the modern era. They haven't won anything since the '60s, which it just tells you there's a lot of untapped potential in Newcastle with their fan base, their stadium's right in the city centre. And we've always said, I think me and you, James, they're prime candidates for a takeover.
Oh, 100%, yeah.
The last few years it's kind of gathered steam, and then this year it looked like it was finally going to happen. And then it didn't. James, what do you think of the state of Newcastle at the minute? And I don't think they're going to go down because of teams like Sheffield United and West Brom, but they're looking really poor.
I mean, it's sad to see what's happening to Newcastle just because they are such a big club with a huge fan base. Like you're saying, they're one football club city kind of thing. So everyone in Newcastle supports Newcastle. But at the same time, I think we all know what the biggest problem's been at Newcastle for years now, and it's the owner, Mike Ashley. It's like when he's literally starving the club of funds and barely backing managers or getting rid of managers when he shouldn't. It's, they're always going to be in a downward sort of spiral. At the end of the day, I actually think that all the fans getting on Steve Bruce back a bit. Again, it's a bit like when West Brom got rid of Bilic. I don't know what they expect with the squad that they have and the manager that they've got, who's a decent-ish manager, Premier League level. Do you know what I mean? You know what you're going to get from him. They're thereabouts where I'd expect them to be in the league. It's nothing surprising. I don't know if they, like I said, if they got a new manager in. First of all, which manager would it even be anyway?
Well, who would take over? That's the other point. Rafa, they had a great manager there, I think, in Rafa, and he walked because he wasn't going to get any investment in the club, so he left.
Which I agree. But then this is the thing as well. I think Steve Bruce even had a better season than Rafa ever achieved last year. I may be wrong on that.
Statistically, they're very, very similar. They're very, very similar statistically.
And that's what I mean. And if anything, I think Steve Bruce has actually had some worse players since then. I feel like they let go of Perez, who was easily one of Newcastle's best players over the past few years. I think Callum Wilson's been a great signing for them this year. But I do agree that football's quite negative this year. But at the end of the day, it goes back to a bit of our argument in one of the previous weeks. What are you hoping for? Results or good play? Because
I think that Newcastle, for me, they just want something to kind of to galvanise them. They don't have any cup runs. When the only thing that's been exciting in the past 10 years has been relegation scraps. No one wants to deal with that in the first place. There's just nothing to It's kind of like Newcastle is just a piece of driftwood. They're just drifting. There's no investment. Mike Ashley bought it, in my opinion, to kind of improve his portfolio. He's never thought, right, I'm going to put money into the club. And Bradley, I'll go to you next, but I'll leave you with a stat. Because over the last 5 years, these clubs have spent more in the transfer market than Newcastle. Watford, Bournemouth, Palace, and Brighton. 4 clubs, there's no disrespect to them, are smaller than Newcastle. They've all spent more money in the transfer market than Newcastle. That's ridiculous.
Yeah, I mean, it is ridiculous. And to be honest, they've been extremely lucky that they haven't been relegated in the past couple of seasons. I think there's been teams that have been worse than them. You mentioned earlier on there, Kieran, that West Brom are probably worse than them. But I'd argue that. I mean, I think West Brom just smashed a team the other day. Was it 3-0 or 4-3 or something like that?
They beat Wolves 3-2 the other day. It was a big result.
That's a great result for them, for West Brom. And look, Big Sam's never been relegated, and I don't see him about to start now. So I think Newcastle are in big, big trouble. And I think it's a rude awakening that Mike Ashley needs. But is it, though? Because he's been relegated before. And
Twice
he's like,
before.
He reminds me of Leonardo DiCaprio in The Wolf on Wall Street. I'm not fucking leaving. You know what I mean? He's clinging on to dear life, and he's draining the life out of that club. And it's a great club, great city. And it's a crying shame. That those because let's be honest, make no mistake, that Newcastle team is awful. They offer nothing. It's anti-football. He is pretty much a B-Tech Jose Mourinho. He's just got far worse players to deal with as well. So, look, I think Newcastle are in trouble. I really do. I think they're on a downward spiral, and I really don't see it getting better for them. And until they get a new owner, what kind of aspirations and achievements do the Newcastle fans really want? Other than safety, because that's as good as it's going to get with Mike Ashley as owner.
Well, that's the other thing as well. The problem, there was a takeover agreed. I remember Newcastle fans getting excited. They were going to get loads of money coming into the club. I think the people who wanted to buy him were richer than the City owners. So the Newcastle fans we can finally get excited about something. And then the Premier League blocked it because they didn't pass a fit and proper test or something like that. When you think of the people in the Football League and who have passed fit and proper football tests, it makes you wonder what went on there. Because you had clubs like Bury pass a fit and proper test. Like, owner like that managed to pass it. So it makes you wonder, were Newcastle fans really told the truth there? In my opinion, I don't think they were.
I think it smacks of more corruption. I think it smacks of more corruption and more monopolising from the current owners of the top clubs in this league already. They're all in cahoots together. When that big league thing came out earlier on and there was talk of Liverpool owners and Man United owners in talks together, when would that have ever happened in this English game? 2 owners of the 2 biggest rivals in cahoots together about creating a Super League or tearing away from the main league. It's just, smacks of more corruption.
They'll be talking about merging the clubs. They'll be talking about merging the clubs yet, knowing the way football's going.
You know what I mean? Franchises.
There's a big thing there. Shay, what do you think of this? What are your thoughts on where can Newcastle go from here?
Newcastle is like a boring movie that won't end. We've been talking about this for years. Nothing will change with this owner. Newcastle are just one of the teams in the Premier League that are just happy to make up numbers. And I feel bad for their fans because they're very passionate up there on Tyneside. They've got a great fan base up there in the northeast. And they've got a massive stadium, one of the biggest in the country. Great stadium, brilliant fan base. But the owner is a parasite. He is like having worms when you go to the toilet. You just can't get it out your system. He's like that. He's that bad. And unfortunately, until this guy goes, nothing will change. They have been down, I think, twice in the last 10, 15 years, and nothing's changed. I was gutted. Well, actually, I was happy when their takeover fell, because that is another team that will pass Arsenal in the Premier League table. So when that happened, I was happy. But still, They deserve better. No, they are a great club. Hopefully they get better soon. But Steve Bruce to me is a Coca-Cola Championship manager. He is a FA Cup third round giant killing manager. He isn't a top coach. You know, he's a great guy. I think he's a nice guy. I just don't think he's a top coach. So, but what can he do? You know. So yeah, fair
well, look,
play.
I mean, yeah, I think Bruce. You can sit here and debate about Bruce all day, but the reality is, you could get anyone in that club, and I don't think they'd achieve anything because the owner's a joke. I think if you look at a man like Mike Ashley, I mean, look at the headlines he's made himself. Like last year when we went into the first lockdown, this guy came out and said he should be allowed to remain open because exercise equipment's essential. Like this guy, he doesn't care what happens. I think outside of his bubble, all he's thinking of is money. How do I make money? How do I make money? Which has made him a successful businessman, but it's also made him a fucking prick. But realistically, the guy is just out of touch. And that, if you're dealing with an owner like that, it's no surprise Newcastle find themselves in the state they're in. Like, look at that stat I gave earlier. Newcastle have a massive stadium in the city, in a major city centre in the UK. A lot of clubs will kill for that, by the way. The real estate where Newcastle is. I think it's a 50,000 seater stadium, which routinely sells out, even when they're playing like this. And then if you look at a team like Bournemouth, who play in a fucking garden shed on the beach, they are spending more money than Newcastle. How does that happen? Where is that money going? And it's obvious where the money's going. It's going to Mike Ashley. That is it. It's ridiculous. He has ripped that club, I think, of its life force. I really do. It's lifeblood. And the fans, it gets to the point now where the fans can only follow Newcastle. Like we said, it's a one-club city, and they're becoming apathetic with it. How have you managed to turn a club like Newcastle's fan base into a fan base which has just given up caring? It's absolutely ridiculous. And to be honest, the sooner Mike Ashley does give up that club, the better. But let's move on to our next topic now.
Well, can I just ask a question on that then? Just out of curiosity, just to see what you guys think. You know how Leeds kind of are at the moment in terms of you could play one game, you could win it 3-0, or you might lose it 4-0. Would you rather be a Newcastle fan right now and play like that? But, and expect results like that? No.
Because the thing is with Leeds, it is when we lose, it's crushing, but we win. Leeds is like a roller coaster. But I said from the start, this is how it's going to be. Leeds are going to walk into the Premier League. We're going to have no fear of anyone, and we're just going to go for teams. And far,
what I mean is, if you're a Newcastle fan, do you think you'd rather play like Leeds then, or play like the way that they are? Do you know what I mean? With it being, it's boring now, but you're probably guaranteed to stay in the Premier League, which is all they really need to aim for. Do you know what I mean? Like that sort of dependable, or your risk, but you have some fun games to watch. Do you know what I mean?
I think you take the Leeds thing because in reality, I haven't been to Ellen Road obviously in a while now, but when you pay to see Leeds, you're going to get entertainment regardless. Like I've known fans this season who don't support Leeds, but make sure they watch all their games because you never know what they're going to get. And I think that argument about getting relegated, the fact is Leeds are actually sitting in quite a decent position for a newly promoted club at this stage of the season. So we've actually got more points than Newcastle. So I don't even think that would be a debate at the minute. Newcastle playing bad football and not getting results.
They're only 4 points behind you though. It's not like they're far off you.
Yeah, but they're also But the thing is with Newcastle, though, they've done this for season on season. And I keep saying this season, the only thing I care about is staying up.
Yeah.
That's our only objective. And whereas Newcastle have done that and they just haven't kicked on. They're just stale. They're drifting. And like I said, the only excitement they're going to get is if they get dragged into relegation battle, which they don't want. And it's sad because I have got a lot of respect for Newcastle as a club. It's a shame. But like I said, we're going to go from one end of the table to the other now. Unfortunately, James is going to be very happy that they're not at the top of the table after Sunday. After that absolute snooze fest, 90 minutes of our lives that we are never getting back. But it's a good result for United. I think 0-0. I said, on the last podcast, if they can get 13 points from the next 5 games, then you can sit there and say you think they can win the league at the end of the season. And that's kind of one box ticked. But we need to talk about Liverpool's form because this is a team over the last couple of seasons. Obviously, they didn't win it 2019. It was City, but they still got 98 points. or 97 points. And last season, they cruised the title and got 99 points. What is going on with them? Shay, I'm going to go to you first. What do you think is going on at Liverpool? Because they haven't scored in 3 games now. And when you think of the front three they have, it's shocking.
I think maybe it's a case of there's 2 things that I thought about today. First thing, I think teams are starting to figure them out a little bit more. Maybe I think we've seen what they pretty much had the same-ish starting 11 for the past 3-4 seasons, so 2 or 3 years. I think teams are starting to figure them out. Not in terms of beating them, but maybe in terms of withstanding the pressure a bit more. We've seen this year that with the front three, especially, in certain regards, they're not getting as much success goals-wise as they were in previous seasons. And also, the other thing as well is the fullback, Trent Alexander-Arnold. What is going on with Trent at the moment? I like Trent. I'm a huge Trent fan. But Trent isn't having the best time of his life at the moment. A lot of their play comes from their fullbacks. And I just think at the moment, teams are starting to figure them out a little bit better. And also as well, have they become complacent because they won the Premier League, they won the Champions League. It's very hard to top what they've done for the last 2 seasons. The question is, have they got complacent? We don't know. But I think they'll be okay. But if I was Jurgen Klopp, I'd be a bit concerned because you shouldn't be drawing against West Brom and so on. And that Man United game, that was the game for them to win. Like United didn't have, well, both teams wanted to win, but United didn't have to win that game. They had to win the game for me. And they were at home and they didn't capitalise. So, yeah, I think it's a mixture of things, but I think they'll be okay.
I mean, before I go to Bradley, I just want to say, the reality is of that game as well, if Pogba could finish that chance, they would have won. Pogba should have, and James is shaking his head because he knows it's true. United should have won that game, had the best chance of it. My opinion of it is this. Look, I don't think teams have started to work them out because they've got that much quality. It's not a case of being worked out. However, I've looked at it. Injuries aren't an excuse because all teams get them. However, when you look at their injury list so far this season, I think the constant chopping and changing, and particularly the back line, has caused this form to kind of to decline a lot because there's no continuity in the team. So far this season, we're halfway through the season, right? And so far, Virgil van Dijk, Thiago, Gomez, Trent, Milner, Alisson, Henderson, Robertson, Jota have all missed significant games through injury. That is a large chunk of their first team squad that has been missing for parts of the season. And while you can, obviously, all teams get injuries, but when that many injuries happen, it just means a constant rotation of personnel, particularly the back four. I think I've lost count of many centre-back pairings they've had this season. For example, against United, they were playing Fabinho and Henderson as centre-backs. And you've got to look at that because the reality is, with all that going on, they were never going to be as good as they were last season. Bradley, what do you think?
I think there's a couple of things, to be honest. I think, firstly, I think you alluded to it, the last 2 seasons, although they didn't win it the season that City won it, they've got 97 odd points. They've been going hardcore for the last 2 and a bit years. Now, that front three, if I look at someone like Man United, the Man United of old that used to dominate, Fergie used to freshen up his front line every now and then to add a little bit more quality so the players around him, you get that oomph, you get that feeling of, let's go again. And they had that with Jota at the start of this season, but unfortunately he's got injured. Now, he was putting real pressure on that front three, and they've just gone a little bit stale. I think Firmino, I think there might be an argument now that they need to go out there and get a proper striker, someone who's maybe going to get 20, 30 goals, because you can get those type of players and still have them link up with your wideman as well. And the second point I want to make is Henderson and Fabinho. These 2 players playing in defence, the fact that they're not playing in midfield means that they can't sustain attacks as frequently as they had done over the last 2 years. Because with those 2 players in midfield, they can just continuously keep recycling the ball and continuously keep attacking the opposition's back four. So I think there's a culmination of different things, injuries as well, I think they're just slightly burnt out a little bit. And I think if I was Jurgen Klopp, I'd want someone in this transfer window. I'd want a statement signing
someone that, like I said, can give a nump to everyone around them, and see where they can end up. But I don't think they're going to win the league this season. I think City are going to win it. And yeah, it'll be a real shame for Liverpool. But they got really lucky last season, let's be honest, with injuries. And that luck always catches up with you eventually.
Well, yeah, it's a good point. Last season, they had a lot of luck with injuries. But this season, I think, like I said, they've been paid back for it with the amount they've had. And it's an interesting point you made there, because I remember last season when they were winning games consistently and they were accumulating points relentlessly. People kept saying, like, how long can they carry this role on for? Because their style of football as well was relentless. It's high energy, it's high pressing. And is that kind of coming home to roost now? Are they running out of energy? Are they starting to get slowed down a bit? Because, like we said, you can't keep accumulating points like they were. It was a relentless pace. And it reminds me of what happened with Dortmund when he was at Dortmund. They had a couple really good seasons. And then I think the season he left, at one point, they were in the relegation zone with halfway through the season, if I remember. They had a really, really bad time of it. They obviously recovered. But is this kind of a pattern repeating itself of Klopp plays heavy metal football and the steroids have been unplugged? That's what I think of it as.
Kieran, what I'd like to add as well, lastly, is not having centre-backs like Virgil van Dijk and Matip who score. You know those games where they've got 0-0s recently, again, or draws? Having Virgil van Dijk and Matip, last season, they were scoring from set pieces. And sometimes when you're not playing at your absolute best, you need a set piece and you need someone like Virgil van Dijk or even Matip who can get their head on the ball. And they haven't had that as well this season.
Well, that's good. James, let me go to you, because this topic I know is going to bring you joy after having to watch Liverpool just be brilliant for the last 2-3 seasons. What do you think the main issue is at Liverpool at the minute?
I mean, to be honest, I think I actually agree with most of the points Bradley said there. A few of them I hadn't even thought of, and I think they actually make a lot of sense. I mean, the one big one that I was going to say was I think they're just a bit burnt out. Like you're saying, when you play that high-intensity football like they do, and they've just been going hard for 2 years now, it's bound to catch up with them, particularly, I think, with this season of all seasons. With it being, the COVID one, there was hardly a break. Do you know what I mean? There was no pre-season. Yeah. Then the fixture list has just been ongoing and ongoing. It's bound to tire players out. It's bound to produce injuries, and that's exactly what I think is happening to Liverpool at the moment. Don't get me wrong. I think it's just a bit of a bad patch for some of these players, and that front three, you can't keep them down for long. They'll be back sooner or later. But I also put a bit of a blame personally on Klopp. And my reason why I say that is because I feel other managers have more rotation in their squad. And I don't think he does. Fair enough, when they had Jota, I saw he was getting into the squad more and the front three was getting changed around a bit more. But where's the faith in Origi? Where's the faith in Minamino?
Origi?
Yeah, but mate,
Origi?
Origi. All
right,
bear with me, mate. But you do what I mean? Like at the end of the day, he scored some important goals for them, so we know he can score. Yeah. Minamino's was brought in as he looked impressive when he was at Salford.
I don't think much of him, Minamino. Every time I see him play,
I'm not going to say I do either, but
not impressed by him.
It's squad depth. Do you know what I mean? It's knowing when to use that squad depth, and I don't see him use it. And I feel because of that, you're bound to get injuries throughout the season. And to be honest, I don't even take that as an excuse. This is probably the United in me. But look, you're talking to Arsenal fans and United fans here who honestly, I think over the past, let's say 10 years, have had some horrible seasons with injuries. I remember there was one point where I think Evans, Jones and Smalling were all injured at the same time. And don't get me wrong, I'm not going to say they're not world beaters. They're not world beaters or anything like that.
You could have called up a couple of fans from the terrace to replace them, so I wouldn't be complaining about that.
But even the problem was, just looking at them, even then, whenever they were getting some good momentum and good consistency to their game, they went and got injured. They were constantly on the injury list, and it just... I may not have picked the best three examples just because of the quality of players.
Is Phil Jones still at United, by the way?
He is, but that's for.
I think he got another. Get a testimonial for being like Harry Maguire gets called a fridge, but this guy is like a broken fridge. This guy's been there he's been there 10 years. It's 10 years this year.
Yeah, mate. I know. I even saw something about it. He doesn't want it.
A testimonial in a pandemic and the attendance be higher than it would if it was in normal times.
He's going nowhere. He's going nowhere. Phil Jones, he's fucking going nowhere.
Like, how? This is the thing, like, this isn't on the agenda, but I've got to say, right, who is making this decision to keep giving this guy a contract extension? Like,
I think he got a new contract as well last year, which I remember just dumbfounded me because I was like, what's he done in the previous few seasons to warrant a new contract? I just couldn't understand it. So,
honestly, it's just ridiculous when you think of. It's not like he's still a youngster. He's been there. He's got to be pushing 30 now, surely.
It'll be about 27, I reckon.
No. So I remember when he went, he was 19, and that was 10 years ago. He's got to be like 29, 30 now.
I know he was young. Oh God.
Like, I mean, that's just incredible. He's still there. Like, honestly, James, if he's played for United for that long, I wouldn't give up yet. I think he might still get a contract. But
yeah,
like,
sorry, to go back to the Liverpool thing, and another thing as well, like to go on the injuries. The reason why I don't like this excuse coming out from them is, like, from Liverpool fans, is, don't get me wrong, playing two centre defensive mids as your centre back pairing isn't ideal, but I think Fabinho is probably the second best centre back in their team anyway after Van Dijk. So it's hardly like that's a downgrade. Henderson, I'll admit, it's not ideal by any means, and it was makeshift. But then Thiago ran the game for them in the first half an hour against United. Do you know what I mean? Like, he literally was picking the passes, creating the tempo, splitting lines. So I'm not going to sit here as a United fan and feel sorry for them when they've got quality players like that. Do you know what I mean? Stop making excuses.
Like I said to you, though, I get the fact injuries aren't an excuse, but the level of injuries they've got it has been really unlucky. But also, I don't want to counterbalance and say, with the money they have and the squad depth they have, it shouldn't really be a problem. And to be fair to them, they're not in like a horrific position. They're only 3 points off the top of the table.
Exactly.
And if the referee had done his job on at the weekend, then they might have won the game 1-0. In reality,
mate, I don't think that. I know the incident you're referring to, the first half whistle, right? I don't think Mane was going anywhere. I think the ball was played. I think the ball was played over the top well, and he was onto it. But I think the centre back would have held him up. I don't think he was through on goal.
Because the referee didn't do his job, so we'll.
Yeah, that is another point. You know, we always talk about the standard referee in this country, but realistically, James, take the fact it's Liverpool out of it, and take the fact it was against your club.
Oh mate, don't get me wrong, I didn't understand it.
If you made that run through in it in like a Sunday league game, and you'd be sent off, I know you'd be fuming. It was such a bad decision. This guy, it is an exclusive for our viewers, by the way. James he's like this nice guy outside, right? But when he's playing football, he turns into the most petulant, silly person when it comes to referees. This guy, I was playing futsal with him, right, in Australia, and he kept arguing with the referee over stupid things.
Because he kept getting them wrong.
But the ref said to him, right, this is your last warning. If you carry on doing this, I'm going to book you. And James, instead of walking away and doing the same thing, just goes, oh, fuck off. And then gets booked. And then acts like he's shocked for his getting booked.
No, I didn't act like I got shocked. Nah. I kept quiet, played the rest of the game, and then I shook the referee's hand at the end of it and said, thank you for being a ref.
He just goes,
I took my punishment like a man. Realised I'd overstepped the line. Nice. Mate, if you don't tell them when they're wrong, how are they going to learn? That's how I look at it.
Well, I mean, this is my point. The fact that referees can do this at a professional level and the players then get fined for calling them shit is ridiculous. There's no accountability. And that decision on the weekend, when I saw that, I was just like, that is Sunday League level poor. It's awful. But enough of that. We'll get on to our last topic for the week. We're now at the halfway stage of the season. Most teams have played 18, 19 games. So we are going to do the player of the half season. I'll go to everyone. I want a nominee from everyone and why, and just set out your case really of why you think they're the player of the half season. Shay, I'll go to you first.
I actually don't know, to be honest. I genuinely don't know who has been the player for the half a season. I genuinely don't know.
Cutting edge content here at Football Shop.
You know what I mean? Just cut that one.
No, but I, not to say I won't give a name, but I've actually, like, when I got this topic as well, I've been racking my head around as well. And I'm like, there's not really for me been one real standout player. I can think of a few that I'd like to give mention to.
I think there's an obvious one, if I'm honest.
Kane is probably the one.
Yeah, that's what I said. Kane this season has got, in 19 games, he's got 12 goals and 11 assists.
Exactly. I think his stats-wise, but I think stats-wise, I have to give it to him, is who I'd nominate. But I think the reason why I've been a bit apprehensive about it is because of Tottenham's form more than on Kane himself.
But then you can't really blame Kane for that because he's doing his job, realistically.
I was going to go with Son, to be honest. I just think I think he's more electric, and I think he's been more dynamic than what Kane has.
But the thing
I think back to that goal he
think
scored against Arsenal.
I don't think Son would have been as good if Kane wasn't playing behind him, because Kane keeps dropping off, playing these little passes through to Son, and I think he's allowed Son to be that good. Kane, for me, this season changed the way he's played.
Mate, let's be honest. If you look at their stats, neither of them would be anything without the other now. You know what I mean? So you can make an argument for both. You know what I mean?
Who the hell is Kane getting his assist from? if Son is
I just think Kane has adapted the way he's played. He's not just a goal scorer anymore, which for me is why he's gone to the next level. Shay, have you got anyone else you want to suggest? Because you must have somebody.
To be honest, I mean, in terms of the first half of the season, I think James Maddison's played quite well. I don't think you get it over Kane, but it's just some names out there: Kane, Son, Maddison. They've had a good first half of the season. I mean, Patrick Bamford, unfortunately, I have to say it as well. He's a contender for having a good first half of the season.
I just think with Bamford,
and also Kieran Tierney as well is one as well.
Yeah, Kieran Tierney is a good shout, to be honest, from an Arsenal perspective, definitely.
You know who a few that I'd like to give a mention to as well. I think this one's really come in the past few, since December, I'd probably say, but Diaz at City.
Yeah, he's been a revelation.
He's really started to show his qualities as a centre-back. I think Fabinho at Liverpool, he's adapted very well to that centre-back position and doesn't look out of place at all, to the point that I even consider him Liverpool's second-best centre-back. And whether or not you guys might agree with this one, because he does drive me up the wall at times, but I think he's having a very good season this year, is Luke Shaw.
Yeah, he's having a good season.
The thing is with Shaw, though, he always has, I think, these spurts of good form and then just goes back to being shit. So Shaw,
he can't afford to do that now because Tellez is breathing down his neck, and I think that's had a real impact on his season.
Yeah. Well, I just thought I'd put some defensive suggestions in there just because, they kind of get overlooked at times.
Let's vote. I'm saying Kane.
I think I'm going to have to say Kane as well. Just like you're saying, as much as I don't want to put it all on stats, he's played well just in general anyway, and the stats back him up for that.
Yeah, I mean, look, I don't mind either Kane or Son, either one of them. I'm fucking Arsenal fan saying that, Jesus Christ! But you can't argue with it. Where like Arsenal, where would Arsenal be without Aubameyang's? Where would Tottenham be without Kane and Son's goals? Let's be honest.
That'd be an interesting stat to look at, if you took away their goals. But Shay, what are you saying? Who are you going to vote for?
Mr. Harry Kane. I'm very happy for him, and I hope he continues for the rest of the season, so that he can lead England, with this kind of form. Obviously, I hope he don't win a trophy for Tottenham, but I wish him well for the rest of the season. Just not winning anything.
Until England.
Yeah.
That wraps it up. That was our final topic we had to cover on today's football agenda. It's been an interesting show. But for now, I'm Colt K, Leeds fan.
James Rocker, Manchester United fan.
The one and only, you can't clone me, Shay, the Arsenal fan.
Bradley, Arsenal fan, clocking out.
Jesus Christ. Thanks, boys.
Later, guys. Cheers.
Thank you, guys. Thank you. Take care. Bye.